don't know why I'm just like constantly reading lately, but I'm addicted. Are you addicted? I hope so. I'm Victoria. Hello, it's nice to have you here. Whew. Where to start? I'm going to start with the book that just came out just a couple days ago. Mockingbird Court. This is the book that I've been looking forward to so much this season. I had it on pre-order and it arrived a day late, and I was annoyed because I was ready to read it that day. But thankfully I had another book I read in that day. So yeah, that's why I've read so much. It's just all these books I've been reading in a day or two. First off, I need to talk to you about Shady Hollow. This is the 6th book, I believe. Then there are 2 short stories. This one reads differently than the others, and I'm going to explain. Vera Vixen, she is the main character in all the books. She is a reporter. She is a fox. All of these are just cozy animals, and they act like human beings. There is something that we learn about, and that is the past of Vera. We never knew her story up until when she moves to this area of Shady Hollow. We know that she came from the city, but now we finally get to learn, who is this fox? What I absolutely loved about this book is it is very, very cozy. So let's take a break from my bingo that I've been doing, where I'm going to put this into the cozy spot. This was just, Shady Hollow is a cozy town, and I was saving this block for hopes that this would like still fit in that spot, and if it didn't, I had another backup plan. So Mockingbird Court was very cozy. So this book in particular, there is a character from one of the other books. We have come back into this book. So there is a murder that takes place, and the accused is someone from a previous book. That character that lives in the city comes back to Shady Hollow to kind of run away. But then on top of it, Vera, she also becomes an extra suspect, which is just crazy, but they explain why. And that this is where we learn about her past. And I was kind of a little hurt to find out about her past, but at the same time, she explains like how young she was and how vulnerable she was. And it was interesting because you learn how her character used to be, and she seemed a lot more timid. And now she is like this strong character, and she has a lot of strength. So I love how like we've seen this strength in her throughout this. And then here we like find out she was once kind of weak. But what I really loved about this, so there is this fall festival that had been taking place throughout Shady Hollow for like a whole weekend. They have like a whole chapter where they talk about, you know, there's different things that go on, but they try soups out, and there's like a soup tasting contest, and one of the creatures there gets to be the judge. And so it was really cute, and I love soup. So this was like, man, there's nothing like having soup on a cold day in autumn that is just screams cozy. So this whole book is set in the autumn time. And there are a couple new characters that we learn and meet in this story. And then we have, what I love is that because we've established so many of these characters, they all really love Vera Vixen, and you could tell who her real friends are in this book. And it's just really beautiful to learn how close-knit they have become. When I started this book, I was like, oh no, I'm not really enjoying it. But then I got really into it, and I loved the story, and it got better and better as I read it. So I loved it. It's another great book. Like I said, there are a couple things that I was little like, oh no, why do they have to do that? But look at these covers. All of the covers are just so gorgeous. What I would have liked is a little bit more with Orville in this book. I feel like he wasn't in it enough. It's like the second book that he wasn't in it enough. I will say that Vera was a little more cutesy with him than she had been previously, so I like where it's going, and he is getting to be more sweet with her, and I think their relationship has formed more trust and has bonded really well. The Nature Fix. This is an amazing book. It tells you about the correlation between nature and our brains and how our brains function. How many of you, when you go out in nature, you just feel such peace and you love it, and it just, I get that way, and I really love it. I'm not really good with cold weather, but there's just something about like the light of the sun on my cheek. I love that feeling. The way the leaves move. There's a lot about trees and leaves in this book. So this, back to my bingo, this is going to go into the leaves or trees, and I was holding this book for that because I could have put so many books in there, but I was like, this one, even the cover shows the leaves, and I was like, this would be perfect to put right dab center in the middle of this bingo card. This has such great information, and it's not boring at all. It keeps me interested the entire time I read this, to learn about ADHD and maybe how we can get better because of nature if we have ADHD, and the studies around that, PTSD and what people go through when they're around nature. She does start this book out talking about forest bathing in Japan. She goes through different countries that she visits and she learns about what her blood pressure is like out in nature too. She does different things to see how she reacts. So she goes to the Netherlands, she goes to Finland, South Korea, Japan, the US, Scotland. There might be more and I just can't think of them right now. I want to tell you some of the quotes that I loved from this. I had like a whole bunch of them that I love, but I'll just share a couple. We don't experience natural environments enough to realize how restored they can make us feel, nor are we aware that studies also show they make us healthier, more creative, more empathetic, and more apt to engage with the world and with each other. Nature, it turns out, is good for civilization. I love it. I came up with a kind of ultra simple coda. Go outside, often, sometimes in wild places, bring friends or not, breathe. Such a simple quote, but it was so powerful. So there is also a lot of stuff about depression. These days, so many people are stuck inside and we don't go outside enough. We're lacking vitamin D. We have a lot more mental situations. And so they're saying how part of that reason is because we're not outside as much. And so that's why these studies in different countries to see how it affects people, what city life is like compared to rural life, things like that. And it was just so eye-opening. The Ghost Cat. This one I didn't really know much about. I just thought it was a cute cover and I said, I'm gonna read this. This was interesting and it could have been very good if it was done better. I did not really actually enjoy this book too much. It was okay. So basically, there's this cat. I think you pronounce his name Grimalkin, but I could be wrong in that. He's from Scotland and Edinburgh. He lives in the 1800s, the late 1800s, with this woman that has been his pal basically since he was a kitten. He has lived now 15 years and he's getting really tired. And he wakes up one day to realize he is dead. He's a ghost now. And so he meets with this head ghost cat who tells him like, hey, how many lives have you lived? And he's like, one. They're like, what do you mean? What about the other 8 lives? He's like, no, he's like, you never fell. And so he's explaining like all these different situations that he could have died. And he's like, nope, that never happened to me. So because he didn't live his 9 lives as a cat, so he lived his 1 life. So then he has to live 2 more lives staying, 3 lives straying, and 3 lives playing. So I thought that was kind of cute. What I didn't understand is he didn't get to live a full life for each of these lives, which I don't understand. Like it was like a day for each, but they were in different times, but they didn't like span the times correctly, in my opinion. It was like just random dates. So you go from the early 1900s is when he is a ghost cat, and different situations while living there that he learns about. And there's like no connections except for like one other time. There's not really any connection to the people that he sees and what he experiences, what he learns. This has a little bit of history in it, but there's nothing to connect you and tie you into feeling like you're connected to the characters. For content, there's language throughout this. There is also a scene where a woman gives birth and they kind of describe what the doctor that is there sees as this birth is happening. At first, I didn't understand it was a birth. Then I was like, oh, okay. And I've birthed 3 times and I didn't get it until like, oh, gotcha. So yeah, it was a little bit of a letdown. Adorning the Dark. This was written by the same person that did the Wingfeather Saga, but this was like an autobiography and I didn't know anything about this man. This author. I listened to the audio version of this because of the fact that he is a musician and he plays some of his songs in this, and I wanted to hear his music without like looking him up, honestly, while telling his story. And so he tells a little bit about his journey as a musician. And I don't know what band he's in, and he's a Christian, and I've known of Christian bands, but I will say he talks a lot about this famous singer from like the 90s, and like his name was Rich Mullins, and he had a tragic death. And I remember like his music being so big, and he's obsessed with Rich Mullins. He mentions him like constantly. I'm like, okay, chill out. But I did enjoy this book, and his story was really vulnerable, very good. He seems pretty humble and a really nice guy. And I liked learning a little bit about his life as a father, but you could tell that he is close to his children. And I think this quote will help you understand a little bit more about what this book is about. But I did enjoy this book, just so you know. I carry persistent fear that my thoughts are incorrect or silly or so obvious they aren't worth saying. Suddenly, I'm a little boy sitting in class like a solemn ghost. Mrs. Larson asks me a a question. All the 7-year-old eyes in the room turn to me with expectation. I'm frozen in place, terrified by the sudden realization that I'm expected to contribute. My cheeks flush and I want to go away to someplace safe, someplace like the woods or the eternal fields of green Illinois corn, where I can watch and experience and listen without any demand to justify my existence. I've always been happy to be alone. God, however, never takes his eyes off of me. And on my good days, I believe that he is smiling, never demanding an answer other than the fact of myself. I exist as his redeemed creation, and that is pleasantly enough for him. This is like so much what this book is about. It's about his own failures and how God got him out of each of those things. Listening for Lions. This is another one that I didn't really know much about, but I saw it recommended for like cozy middle grade books set in the Edwardian time. This young girl here, her name is Rachel, and she has grown up in an area near Nairobi in Africa, and she has missionary parents. Her father is the only doctor in the area. Her mother helps when she can. She loves learning with her parents. And we learn right away that her parents are dead. Now that she's only a young girl, there are people that try to take advantage of her. There are other people that care about her. So her listening for lions has to do with listening to God. And the lions of Africa were calming for her. So she would often fall asleep to the sound of the lions, and she liked that. At some point in this book, she travels to England, and she says how much she misses Africa throughout it. And as she's growing up, she learns a lot of lessons about things around her, about birds. There's a lot of talk about birds in this book, and there's a lot of trying to be who she is when she is told she is not allowed to be who she is. And it's a very sad story for parts of the book where you're like, I feel for this girl. And I didn't know that I would love this book as much as I did, but I really did. This was just really good. It wasn't long. It filled the gaps and it explained things so well. I think there were parts in the end where it could have been a little bit better, but it still was really good. I recommend this if you like books about missionaries, books about that time period, and middle grade books, and there is some faith in it. Strange Sally Diamond. This was another book that I went into kind of blindly. I had looked forward to it because I thought like it sounded unique from just reading the description on the book. And so it was one that I've been looking forward to the past couple months. So this starts off where we learn about Sally. And right away we learned that her father has died. But the problem is that his instructions for his death, she gets a little bit confused and takes something literally. And I'm not going to say what it was, but it was just like, as soon as I read this, it was like the first paragraph that I'm like, what? And then I read it to my husband. I was like, this will be an interesting story. This is a bit of a thriller, maybe even a psychological thriller. Yeah, and I love those. And I haven't read one in a while. So Sally, she has to learn what she has to do. Now she's in the start of this book, she is 42 years old. But we learn quickly that she doesn't remember the first 7 years of her life. And she didn't realize that was a weird thing. She just figured all kids started to have memories around that time. So there's something that has been blocked off. We backtrack a bit and we start to learn more of her story, and that she had a famous, sad, true crime story in her past. So we learn about who she is now, what she's like, and she is actually a very caring person, even though she dissociates from things. Like she has emotions and understanding, but at the same time, she doesn't know how to show it properly. So I thought this was very unique. But then as we go through about like 75 to 100 pages in, we get a different perspective from the past. And so that was very cool too, because then we go back and forth between her present day and the past from this other person's perspective. That is what made me go like, I need to know more. I want to learn more. And I was just like, wow. Now I've read a lot of actual true crime stories, and I can't even say what type at times because it might give away things. And I want you guys to like not really know what this is fully about, but I want you to read it if you're into thrillers and mysteries and things like that, because it's just so good. I got so sucked into it, I read it within a day. I couldn't put it down. I just wanted to read more and more. The ending though left me longing and felt incomplete. And I don't know if there's a sequel book that has been written or if there will be. I have to check on that. But I'm just like, but there's just something that I feel needs to be kind of like justice needing to be served in certain ways. But it was fascinating. I really enjoyed Sally. For content reasons, I will say there is mention of just like her neighbors that live like nearby. There is a lesbian couple, and I know like a lot of people don't want to read books. There's nothing more than just saying that they're a married lesbian couple. Just letting you know. Again, I went into this blindly. There is language throughout this. There is talk about abuse towards women in different forms. I'll leave it at that. There is nothing described though. They did very well to respect people that maybe have been harmed. So there's nothing described, but it's just such a sad situation when you learn about certain things from the past and things like that. Oh, just warning you though, there is some content in here, but it's just such a really, really interesting story. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Now, I did see this movie when it came out, and I've not seen it since. When that came out, I watched it, I enjoyed it, but this is told so differently to me than that movie. This is completely through letters, and it was just a kind of overload of characters where I'm like, who's this person? Who's like, I felt like there were too many characters at first, and you have to try to figure out who's who as you go along. Sometimes it felt like I was just reading some gossip, but we do learn who these characters are. The main character is Juliet. She is not from Guernsey, but she learns from a letter from someone that she should come visit. And this is set right after World War II, a few years later. And so she learns about what Guernsey, which is a small island off of the coast of England that got occupied by German soldiers, and they were treated terribly. And so they explain through some of these letters the treatment that was done towards these people. And this literary potato peel society, they had a book club, but they were also meeting for different purposes. So it tells about their story. But Juliet also has a story. She starts to really enjoy getting to know all the people there and feels an attachment to some of them. But I didn't really love this book, and I feel badly because I know a lot of people give this like rave reviews, but mine was kind of average. I didn't hate it because I really enjoyed the history aspects and learning, and it was just really sad to learn about. But the characters and the way it was written, I couldn't get sucked into it. Actually almost gave up on this book at first, but I'm glad I didn't. There were parts of these letters where these people sounded so joyful despite what they went through, and so it reminds me that no matter how terrible your life has been in certain parts, you can find healing and you can find a way to cope, as horrible as that is. And a lot of people back then, they just kind of shut off and continue their life, and it's kind of sad because they didn't express it. But these people are expressing what their lives are like, but they do explain people that don't do that in the letters too. And the last book that I'm reviewing today is Tess of WWII, and I say it in the French way because that's the way you pronounce it. But in the English way, they say d'Urberville, which is so boring sounding to me. Tess. Oh, poor Tess. You feel for her this whole story. This is a depressing book. Victober is supposed to be this month in October, and my name is Victoria, and I have to read a Victorian book for Victober because what right would I have with my name to not do so? So this was my choice for Victober, and I know a lot of people are reading lots and lots of Victorian books this month. I just have so many other books I want to read, but this was part of what I decided to read. And I will say, I had my Victorian cat in this pile. Throughout this month, I've read some books set in that age, or they actually are Victorian written books. One thing that was annoying when I got this book, it was so dusty at the library, and it was like sitting in a funny way on the shelf. So it has not been read from the library in a while. And I was kind of like, that's so sad, but it is a sad tale. So Tess, her parents are Derbyfields, but they originally were d'Urberville or d'Urbervilles. So what happens is right in the beginning, a horse that her family has, and she has like some sort of situation that takes place where the horse dies, and she feels so guilty about it. And her family's kind of poor, and so she has to go get a job. She wants to help. Now that there's no horse, it makes things even worse. So her parents tell her, can you please go to these neighbors that are d'Urbervilles? He's not a good guy. This follows her life. She is actually a really lovely girl. She's a hard worker, and she does all she can for her family. But sometimes her parents tell her to do things that I feel they're not taking her interests in mind. They're just thinking of themselves. And she sees that and doesn't really want to be around them, to be honest, but she cares about her siblings. So she does her best to support her family. And there is a point where she falls in love with someone when she's working on a dairy, milking the cows. But then there are things that person named Angel, he starts to learn a little bit about her as a person. And I gotta say, like, all these people seem like very taken to her look. She's beautiful, but she has such a great spirit. You know, she's called these names like stubborn and all these things, but honestly, people don't try to understand her at all, and she doesn't really explain herself. It's very hard for me to review this without giving anything away. There's just so many things. It's just a tragic story. The whole story is depressing. If you don't like depressing stories, do not read this. There's hardly any joy in this book. There are just tiny moments of joy. But her one cousin, I can't stand him. He's not a good character. You know, he's in the beginning, but then later on he's back in the book and I'm like, no, I don't want to hear about this guy anymore. Get rid of him. I don't want him to be there. But then there's more stuff that happens that's really sad. And you're like, no, out of like desperation, there are things that take place. See, even my baby is sad. I am going to have to stop reviewing this because my toddler has been calling for me and my husband's been watching him, and that's just how it is, and I'm okay with it. So I'm going to go hold him because he misses his mama. He's 2, he's very attached to me. This book, I struggled in certain ways to like it. I will say these characters, they are well written. Thomas Hardy knows how to write people. He knows how to show these emotions and how to get you to not like people and how to really feel sorry for other people and how you want other people to understand things in a certain way and to stop with your principles and to start thinking about the people, have empathy. It's just so sad. There is a little bit of romance in this. It was a good story, but a sad story, and I don't do sad stories too well. This is just too much sad. Too much sad, or I would have given it more stars, and plus because of other situations, I just hope this, like when this was written, I hope it taught a lot of people a little bit more about how to be more caring of people that go through some of the things Tess goes through. There's nothing graphic in this, but there's just things, how she's treated, that is going to annoy you, probably, as it did me. When you read this, you're not gonna like the cuz, just as I did. He doesn't learn. He like makes her seem like she's at fault for things that he's at fault for, and that's what bothers me, is that he doesn't see reason. He doesn't see his own faults. He has no humility, yet he makes it seem like she's the one without humility. She's the one with the faults. And then, you know, Angel kind of does the same thing in a slight way, but definitely not as terribly. But the way he treats her, you'd think because he cares about her so much, he would care for who she is and what she's gone through. Sometimes people learn things too late. So I'll just say that. Okay, so those are all the books. Thank you so much. My bingo card's almost done. I just read so many books that are on my to-read list for this season, and I'm doing so well, and I'm hoping I'll continue to do so. Well, I gotta go. Have a great day. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.